to hear from your side, like what sort of challenges you guys are having, or what you would like to discuss majorly on the compliance part and all. So I'll just try to share one slide, and then we can directly go into a fireside chat kind of thing. I would love to hear from you guys. If you have something to ask, and if I can share my knowledge or my answer to that one, definitely I would love to answer that as well. For me, innovation always is one thing which comes from the hard side, like what particular thing you're good at. It can always be something, a prototype or something which you have worked during your engineering time period, which you want to have as a startup today. And to all the people who are over here, I must say that today even government is recognizing this particular one tag like a startup, and it has been part of the mainframe now. Like government has also recognized 16th of January as a startup day, National Startup Day. So, firstly, congratulations to you all as well on that part. So, for me, like moving from zero to one is always part of an innovation, and whatever we can think about, whatever our mind can think or conceive, it can definitely be achieved out. That's one of the best quote I have ever heard, and I myself have tried to execute it that over the time period. For prototypes, many of you guys might be working on the hardware-led startup, whereas some of you are on the SaaS-based model where softwares are heavily being doing a lot of things. But for me, prototypes come from the engineering side. I come from the engineering background. I did my BTech and Tech in electronics. So when I see on the prototype, these are some of the block diagrams which you may have seen over the time period, which you also like as a student you may have worked. Maybe today, if you are already into a startup which is working on the SaaS, which is working on the software side, maybe these are the things which you have started like to get into this startup journey and all, right? These were some of the product and prototypes which our team was working earlier, which I was part of them. Some of the invention you may have seen during the COVID period as well, like for example this particular one, very small innovation, maybe even somebody without having very high tech degrees and all have invented this thing, but it's having very huge applications today, even post COVID kind of thing, right? Some of the inventions which see as a very high domain are always having very high impact from the lower side. And when I talk on the startup side, we always have a multi-million or dollar business idea. But how do we do it out? What are the important parameters for it? And how do we move toward the compliance side as well? That is also one important thing. For me, as a part of ecosystem, for example, for the time being, I'm working with the Headstart, and whenever I see something on the ideas by the startup, these three things I always used to say that keep these three important parameter in your mind whenever you are planning to have a startup. It can be in any domain, be it in the hardware or software, anything. But design, customer, and necessity. These are three very important particular segment which will define the future of your startup. Of course, there are parameters, there are the stages. You all guys must be following this kind of thing, like how we develop as a product. It always starts from creating something, and by doing it on the real time test, by hearing out the feedbacks, we have one first level, second level, and then finally after multiple level of iteration on the product, we get one final product. And many of the time it happens that whatever we have thought in the initial stage get changed over the last time period. Do's and don't, you of course are following that particular part. Solve for something for the today, this is not something which I would love to discuss because you all know about this, right? But in any case, it should always be for the time, for the invention which is focusing on the present and not on the futures. This should always be something where you are solving something for your customers. And I many of the time you may have heard that don't fall in love with your product, because you'll have to understand what your customer want to look for it, what particular problem statement you are solving, and is it for the today, and how much level of kind of thing for stakeholders can judge that as a value. These are some of the things which you all may have heard. But if I talk like once you have the idea, what is next? These are some of the checklist I think that should be with us whenever we are going with any startup. We should have these checklists. But compliance is one very important part, right? And most of startups ideas comes by research. But before moving to this, before you do a PR, like, okay, I've got a multi-million idea, I have this idea, what you need to do, right? There need to be something. You all know about the IPs, right? Many of you are already having it. So we should go with it first, like to have an IP. These are some of the IP formations and all. These are some of the parts. For example, you can go for patent, trademark, copyright, trade secrets, and industrial design in India. some of the patents. If you guys have any queries around it, you guys can ask me on that. And these are some of the IP strategy when you're planning for it out, like how you can achieve that out, what you need to do. And on identifying the plans from these five stages, I used to say that follow these five particular stages, strategy and step, and then go for the IP. Once you have all these, then definitely would be a uh, good thing for you guys to achieve it out. So I'll not say much. I would love to discuss with you guys if you have something to ask. If you are stuck with somewhere, like be it in the compliance phase of IP, be it in the company registration part, or on something where I can contribute any value. If you have any thought, any questions, please feel free to ask. And let's try to make this more on the conversational mode. If I know answer, I'll definitely be answering you guys. If I don't know it, I'll be trying to bring someone who knows it, maybe from the Headstart side or from the team where I works. Please go ahead.
Mukesh, hi, Kaushal here.
Hi, Kausal. Very
So,
nice to see you again.
thanks a lot. So, just a query regarding the this government data protection policy. Can you give us some some information about it? Like, is there any license we need to procure, or anything you can suggest on that?
See, most of the time people talk about people talk about the data protections in a way that why this is needed, right? You may have heard a lot time people have talked like what will happen if my data from the Aadhaar will get linked, right? This is an overhyped kind of thing. But as far as the information is like concerned, what all information need to be protected, this is part of our like day-to-day activities of websites and all. For example, you may have even done on the Google side, for example, right? We all have those policies. These policies are always retained with the company side. For example, you can have your own policies. However, these need to follow the process which has been set up by the government side. For example, it should be like lawfully processed. It should be with the compliance of the bill which government has put up. It should have like the data which you have, the personal information. It must be processed for the limited purpose only. For example, if you are taking my data, for what purpose you want to take that up, right? That need to be very clear over there. You cannot keep some data for very long time period unless it is very important for you. For example, if let's say today your company is working on financial segment, you may have my data for a certain time period, right? Similarly, the relevant information, for example, you cannot mislead with that part, right? So these are some of the things for each. Whereas concern on the legality part, for example, you have asked, do we need to buy something? There is no such particular act or something like where you say that okay, we have bought this service from the government side and now our company is data compliance on that. However, you definitely can go for the ISO certifications. These certifications are given by the independent regulatory bodies where you may have some particular certification which talks on the data regulatory kind of part, right? So these are few things on the government side. You may have heard about few bills which has been raised by EU and all, right? So these are some compliances where we need to have some look around it.
So, is there any particular license for that? Like, for example, in international market, there is a GDPR, right? But for India, like yes, like frankly speaking,
So
from my side, we always, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
from that particular perspective, as of now, for my knowledge, we do not have such policy upfront. Of course, Government of India has recently worked on it, working on it. For example, MITI is heavily working on bringing out some policy around it. Niti Aayog has also even launched few white papers around it. And but upfront from the government side, there is no such policies. But MITI may be working on some policies for it. But there is no such rules and regulations. For example, there is no such regulations like, for example, ISO you can buy. That's what I said, right? There is nothing from the government regulatory side as of now.
Okay, okay. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mukesh, I just wanted to know one thing about the patents and the copyright. So, as we have our own e-commerce website, it's a multi-vendor. So, can we do the copywriting of the data as of now? Because we are just changing few of the things every time. Just the content is being corrected at different stages. So, how do we do the copywriting? And I need to know more about the patent also for the e-commerce.
So e-commerce website does not comes from the Patent Act directly. uh, even actually no website you can put as a patent for something unless it has some meaningful impact with the hardware. For example, if some software is over there, let's say if there is city machine, that kind of high tech machine or invention is over there, right? For example, in healthcare segment, all the inventions are heavily deployed with the softwares. You may have seen an MRI scan machine, which is having an hardware, whereas it has also a software with it, right? Which and most of the time these things come from the German, US, and all. So what happens over there is they have protections over both things. Means you will have to invest for purchasing of that hardware. Plus, you'll also have to invest to purchase the software for it. So that's how they usually protect it out. But whereas in India, this software particular thing, e-commerce and all, does not comes from the Patent Act. However, for the copyright, let's say if you have copyrighted some content which is on the real-time basis, let's say today, and tomorrow you are modifying that content. If the basic structure is same, it you need not to go for the copyright again on it because you are modifying the content but not the basic block building of your website. For example, today you are saying that okay, we are selling one bottle, and tomorrow you are saying that there are 10 different bottles of that kind of thing. This is just addition of the content, right? Not making changes on the web portal or something like that. So for that you need not to go for copyright every time, right? On the coding side, if you want to protect your rights, so for that I'll have to check like how you can protect your rights on the e-commerce platform, uh, because these are all the open source kind of thing, right? So that's what I can say for the time being.
Okay, can you just suggest me something to safeguard the website if the like similar thing somebody is willing to do, so we can just protect our website and the concept basically. Anything like closely related to this is also there in the under this IPR Act.
No, so when it comes to the digital part, it's very hard actually because all the websites and all the content, for example, Amazon and Flipkart, right? If you see together, both the website they may have the same structure over there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Process can also be the same. Means
yeah.
you'll have to make the sign up, you'll have to make even the vendor management system software is also same for them.
Hmm.
So when it comes to the e-commerce website, it is very difficult to have that kind of legal processes over there, right? So that's one thing, but I'll definitely connect you with some of the patent attorneys I know who are heavily working on this software part. So
Okay.
they may be able to answer you on a good way, like how you can protect your idea. But again, as a conclusive remark, I can say this one particular domain is very heavy to protect, because you have seen the example of Amazon and Flipkart, right?
Yeah.
Both are big giant, and if there would have been something to protect, definitely we may have heard about it.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So can you just
unless unless
connect?
unless your technology is something which is connecting some other invention with it. For example, some embedded based solutions with it, right? Maybe some data protections. For example, you may be using some wearable technologies today's with you, right?
Hmm.
It can be headphone from the noise, it can be a high-tech monitoring system, it can be an invention like Sunfox Technologies is doing. So unless it is related to something like that, it's really a difficult topic for even me to answer on that one.
Okay. So any Shiva, can you me with any of the IPR consultants so that we would like to go for the copyright and all that stuff, just to safeguard the framework of the website?
Yeah. I'll recommend some to Siba, and Siba can directly connect you with them. Few of the IP partners Headstart have onboarded with us, so you can connect with them as well. Whereas you can take legal services, at least for the consulting part, with them without having any charges, I believe.
Sure, that's great. Thanks a lot, Mukesh.
Thank you, Vinit.
Okay, so I think Mukesh, till the time we have few more questions, what would you suggest for startups to work on their policies and everything in place before going ahead? Because you have been an expert in maintaining the product policies and rest of the stuff. So your thoughts on that?
So, as far as policy prospect, whenever launching some product, if it is, again, this depend on the kind of product you are launching, right? Either it's a product on the healthcare side. For example, if you need to launch something on health tech, Definitely, you need to manage the policies from Indian medical and all these association kind of regulatory bodies, right? So that's one thing, but be very clear with the structure of your product, with the invention of yours, and also if it is a policy for the internal or external stakeholders. Maybe when you're setting up your company, you need to have good policies with your founders, co-founders, and all. Today, Startup India have almost all policies framework document with them. So, for example, it is more on legal side, it is more on consulting side. If you're hiring somebody to do your work, most of the time in the early stage of startups, what we do is like, for example, we connect with the vendors, right? Most of the work are being done by the vendors directly. So have your proper consulting service agreement with them. Without having a consulting agreement, do not work with any vendor. Without having an NDA, do not work with anyone. Even if it is very minute work, even if that vendor is known to you. Most of the time, the conflict arises because all ideas revolve around a single problem or statement, right? The way for doing it also different. Most of the time 80% of ideas are like close to each other. For example, Amazon and Flipkart are quite similar cases. Zomato and Swiggy are quite similar cases, right? So all inventions are ultimately revolving around one way or other way. If it is on a single domain, then it may have same kind of solutions for the problem statement. Only our way of solving out that problem may be different. So in that case, have your proper consulting document with you, have your proper legal document with you before executing out those kind of services. And even with your client and user base, you need not to have a very lengthy privacy policies act or something like that. It can be as small as possible, like on your disclaimer that we are just taking this data for that particular purpose, and then be sure with you, like if you are not misusing that data, right? There are certain frameworks which already companies are using. For example, if somebody is using AWS server today, they may not have to be worry about privacy policy. For example, Kausal has asked me something on that, because if we are using third party services, ultimately most of the time we guys use third party services like plugins and all, right? But if it is coming from big giant like AWS or from the Azure, like from the Microsoft side, definitely they are keeping track of it, and they are also following some rules and regulations. So unless you are by like knowingly you are doing something wrong, if you are doing that, then that's wrong. But otherwise, means there is no such more concern about it.
I think great thought. These are very important because many a times startups do not know that how to protect themselves, and this is a very blunt thing which I keep hearing. I will not share my idea with this fellow
No,
or
so
this.
idea, yeah, so idea sharing, people should not be worried about it, because unless you do share your ideas with an incubator or accelerator or with somebody, nothing will happen, right? So this is a very wrong perception with the founder that if I share my idea, I lose the idea, right? I lose my startup. That's very wrong. Every every idea is always revolving around a single problem. Means we can have 10 different problems, but way solving out that problem is important. Execution is very important, right? Even if today, let's say if 10 years back Zomato and Swiggy founders may have fought over each other, right? Like you have copied my idea and you have copied my idea. But India is such a big population, 1.3 plus big population, is like, even if multiple people are doing same solutions, there's a huge potential to like make revenues as well as to solve and to make the impact, right? So nothing to worry about it. Always share your ideas with other people, because then you'll be getting feedback what actually they want. And even in the later stage, you'll have to communicate with your user base. Unless you communicate with users and if you launch that product, nothing will happen, right? No one will like to have that idea. So sharing is like, people definitely need to share it out. And even in open pitches forum today, like many of the demo days are happening and all, ultimately you have to share that out. The execution is the real recipe, right? How you want to do it.
So with this continuation, Mukesh, what do you suggest? When should an NDA come in place with a corporate or investor when we are dealing with?
So NDA comes in the picture when you want to share the backend story of it. For example, if I to say that my product idea is this, right? But let's say if I want you to onboard and if I want you to execute this up, right? That time only NDA comes to the picture. That's what my personal opinion. Maybe someone may have a different opinion over there. But sharing out an invention, talking about a brief kind of elevator pitch and all, NDA never comes into the picture. Of course, it's a good way to have an NDA. Let's say today many of the incubators also have this kind of policies that if you're submitting to us, it will not go to anywhere else. Even government is following it out. But all the time it is not very, very much important. For example, if you apply to many big government grants and all, they also have this clear thing that will not be able to sign NDA because they are bound with the compliance and all, right? But if let's say you are sharing, for example, to me and you want me to execute that part, if you want me to onboard over there as a consulting partner, that time we need to have a NDA over there. If let's say tomorrow somebody want to have SNU to invest on that particular product, that time you guys need to have an NDA with the founders or something like that. But if they want to incubate at some incubation center, if they want to have me review that particular presentation, if they want some investors to review that deck, it is not very much important for them to sign an NDA unless you are uncertain about them. For example, if you feel that this guy is wrong, sharing my data with this agency may jeopardize my product, or if that deck or content is having 80-90% of my invention, that time I think that's why these IPs are important. That time you should file patent, trademarks or copyright, so that even in any case tomorrow you have something to claim for it. So this IPs basically protects you even many of the time to like not to sign NDAs. I don't need to sign an NDA for my technology which I have invented if I want to present it in front of any investors or in front of any like person, because I know that this has been patented by me and tomorrow I can claim for it, like what claims I have over it.
Mukesh, there is one question. I know it's not related to compliances, but on Startup India website, there is a one benefit which the government is providing to startups, which they can avail. Like for example, according to them, a startup can also avail 3 years of tax exemption. Actually,
Yeah, true, true.
so if you can give some more information about it or process, if you know something about it, so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
will
So for
very
example,
great to
yeah,
benefit.
even that tax exemption is something which is very important for startups to interact with the investors. So what happens in the investment fraternities as well today, if you see on the Startup India portal, you'll find that more than 60,000 plus of startups are recognized by them, right? So this is something like, for example, uh, usually the recognition process is also for 3 days only. So recognition, getting a startup recognition is easy, but that financial thing which you have just asked me is very difficult because it's a tax exemption over your business model and all. So for that particular, what happens whenever you apply for it, they have a financial regulatory committee which will sit over it, and then they'll approve that particular case. So it's kind of a quarterly meeting, you can say, or maybe I don't know if it happens monthly basis or on the quarterly basis, but this definitely happens on case to case basis. My suggestions to all the founder is always, because this is a key kind of thing, right? You should not avail it in the first year itself, because let's say if you get it out, you will not be able to protect much, you will not able to save much, because that's a tax exemption for you, right? So let's say today your company is generating 1 CR of the revenue or profit. Usually for private limited it is like 25% of that fund goes as a tax, right?
Right.
So that 25% you guys have to pay. So this tax exemptions comes over there. As well as for investors, if any investor in investing on you, there might be some regulations or the angel funds you may have heard, right? For the detail, I'll again connect you with maybe Tushar or somebody from the Headstart side. But these funds and regulations only eligible once you have that tax exemption certification from the Startup India side.
Got it.
Yeah. But my suggestion is, if let's say you are making a very small revenue in the first 2-3 years, because again time period for a startup is I think 10 year today, right? Or 7 or 10 year, I believe. So let's say for 3-4 years you are generating good money. Once you feel that now we are having very high amount of revenue, let's go for this certification. Then only apply for it, unless it's not a very important. And the second part is when you feel that you are ready for investment from the angel or VC funds, because VC and angel investors will not look for your DPITT certificate or DIPPT certificate, but for that tax exemption certificate, because they'll invest huge money and they'll get only tax exemptions when you once you have this certification with you.
Right. 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 Thank you.
Great, great. I think we have another 5 minutes to go, and we have Mukesh, who is also part of Head Start. I think you can ask your queries. They run a very good network of investors. They run a grassroots level engagement with various governments. So if you have any vendor related query, how to get some government projects or anything of that sort, Mukesh is hands on on that. Please go ahead. By the way, Mukesh, how these startups can apply and go for tendering process of government, or is that like how would you suggest to go ahead, because you have been working with so many governments so far?
Yeah. So for the government grant side, I always used to say that for any startup which is in first 3 year, government grants are best way to go ahead. Yeah, and also to succeed and to escalate their journey, because that's a grant and not a loan or something like that, right? Unless, like for example, angel fund and VCs fund, you'll have to give some equity, something like that. There are very few grants where you will have to give your equity. Other than that, most of the government grants are something which you can utilize to develop the fund, to develop the technology. For example, there are funds by DST, there are funds by DBT. For example, BIREC is one such a scheme which heavily invest on health tech related solutions, whereas STPI is heavily investing on software related solutions and on the SaaS based solutions. Chunati has been over there, and there are multiple programs already listed by STPI. If you guys are into software and SaaS based solutions, definitely visit out stpi.in. We have multiple challenges over there, which gives you a fund of 20-25 lakh kind of thing, which is a very good amount actually, right? To build your product and prototype in the first stage. Whereas the second part of second question, sorry, Sibat, which you have asked me, like this is more on.
So this is more on how to they can get some projects or working with the
Yeah,
government.
yeah. So if you have that certification of the Startup India, this gives you leverage to apply for funds on various states. Many of the states have their separate rules and regulations as well. For example, Uttarakhand state policies have their procurement policies, which gives you exemption for financial kind of sectors, because most of the tender have some financial clause. Like your company need to have 10L or 50 CR or 20 CR kind of regulations. But once you have this Startup India certifications, many of the time it get exempted over there. Second part is GM can be one great portal for you guys. Do register yourself for GM. This is very easy process, and if you are listed over there, then also startups can basically works with the very good companies and corporates, even with the PSUs, because they have a mandate to purchase from GM portal only, right? They cannot just directly go. One way for them is vendor process, and another one is GEM. So if you see today, most of the government tendering has been stopped because all people are doing through GEM portal only. So that's an easy way for them, right? So all the startups should definitely register themselves on the GEM portal. Try to see like what all services they are looking for, and if you are also providing something like that, then one other way can be like through that GEM portal for to avail the vendors or that kind of service agreement from the government side.
Great, great. I think that's very, very important. Also, I'll add on to this that there are various state governments who run and engage various programs where they put their departments to participate and take up the startup projects there and that itself. So, irrespective of you being from NCR or any state, do look out for such engagement activities. Participate, because this peer learning and engagement with government is very important. You get to have some more information, and that's very important for your growth. By the way, with this we come to an end. That was amazing, Mukesh, and this is not the end again. We would like to have some more enriching sessions with you. Also, we would like to have some more engagement post this discussion. We have a feedback form down in the chat box. Do put your name and details with your queries. We'll get back to you individually. Also, let's have a quick group photograph if you are convenient to switch on your cams. We can just click some memorable pictures here for us to remember that Mukesh was with us.
For anything where you guys feel that Headstart can contribute in any way, you are always we are always open for your inputs and suggestion. You can reach out to me on my email ID. I think Siva and team have it. Headstart have various program, various initiative. For example, we have our own investment arm, we have our own innovation hub. So if you need something like that, we'll be more than happy to help you guys.
Mukesh, just last question. Do you
Yes,
any
your
connect
Kaushal.
with do you any connect with STPI, Software Park, Technology Park of India?
Yeah, definitely we do have, and recently we have signed an MOU with MITI,
Okay.
MITI Startup Hub, which is a wing of STPI, right? So last week only we have signed SOI with them.
Okay.
We can help you out on that note as well.
That's great. Thanks a lot. We can connect after.
Yeah, surely, surely.
Thanks.
All right, here we have some very good pictures. Priyanjali will post it on social media. Tag all of you. If you share your feedback form, we'll definitely tag you on your LinkedIn. So do share your names and details. We'll get back to you through LinkedIn. Okay. Thanks, Mukesh. Thanks for this
Thank
lovely
you, Siba,
session.
and thank you everyone for connecting. I hope I have given some input which will help and add value to you guys. And if I have missed something, do reach out to me. I'll connect you with the appropriate team from my side. For example, for investment, I'll connect like you with the investment circle. Kausal, I'll connect you with somebody from the IT side of our team, who will
Thanks a lot.
help you with more appropriate answer on your questions.
Definitely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you,
Mukesh,
everyone.
how
Thank
to
you so
connect
much.
you
Thanks. Thanks.
directly?
Always
Just
my email,
So
my
Vineet,
mobile number.
he's part of our AIC incubating group. You just need to
Yeah.
search and ping him up. All right.
Yes,
okay.
I'm
Sure.
also over there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right. Bye bye. Bye everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, there is somebody who's not able to access the form. Okay.
Okay, I'll
Priyanjali?
share it in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
group as well.
Yeah, you can give him the access because that email must come to you. Just
Okay,
grant
I
access.
have already. Sure, I'll ask
Ah,
Aryan.
thanks. Thanks.
Thank you.